I left my fiancé on our wedding day. Treason or the right? They say when you know, you know. But what if you think you know, and only later realize you were just afraid of not knowing? Ethan and I met in our junior year at NYU. He was the guy every parent dreamed their daughter would marry. Polite, soft-spoken, straight-A business major with a part-time job at his uncle's accounting firm. Meanwhile, I was a film student with zero direction, a messy apartment and a thing for iced coffee and chaos. He grounded me. Made me feel calm in a way I didn't know I needed. It wasn't love at first sight. It was more like comfort at first conversation. He offered to help me with an economics class I was barely passing. I repaid him with late-night pizza and laughter that somehow never felt forced. By the time we graduated, we had a shared apartment, a dog named Charlie, and a rhythm that felt safe. Like a life you could build on. Ethan was the kind of man who paid bills on time, flossed every night, and never raised his voice. He brought me flowers every second Sunday just because and made breakfast for my mom the first time she stayed with us. People adored him. Even strangers. Waiters, Uber drivers, doormen. Everyone called him a good guy. And he really was. But somewhere along the way I stopped feeling like me. I became Ethan's fiancé. Ethan's plus one. Ethan's steady girl. And I wore that like a badge at first. Then came the proposal. He took me to a vineyard in Connecticut, had a private table set under string lights, and said all the right things. My hands trembled when he opened the box. It was beautiful, round-cut, gold band, elegant. Like him. I said yes. And for a while it all felt like a dream. We had engagement photos in Central Park, brunches with his family in Connecticut, menu tastings at farm-to-table venues. Everyone kept saying how perfect we were. I smiled so much my cheeks ached. But at night, when I lay next to him staring at the ceiling while he snored softly, I felt alone in my own story. Sometimes I get flashes, brief, stupid thoughts. Is this all there is? Will he still kiss me like this at 40? Do I want to be married, or do I just not want to disappoint anyone? And that question haunted me more than any cold feet cliché. I didn't talk about it with anyone. Not my mom, not my best friend Nicole, not even my journal. I buried the thoughts under to-do lists. Buy candles, choose cake flavors, book makeup trial. Because if you keep moving, the doubt can't catch up. Right? But I think deep down I already knew. I was about to marry a man who loved me completely, but maybe I wasn't sure I could do the same. I told myself it was just nerves. That every bride questions everything before the big day. That I'd laugh at this one day with Ethan wrinkled and happy, drinking coffee on a porch in Vermont. But everything started to change the night I met Tyler. And that, I guess, is chapter 2. It was a Friday evening in late August. The kind where the heat finally lets go a little and the city feels less like a furnace and more like a memory of summer. Ethan had gone to New Haven for the weekend. Some last-minute guy thing, with his brother before the wedding. I didn't mind. Honestly, I needed the space. Nicole had dragged me to her engagement party, hosted on the rooftop of her fiancé's friend's apartment building in Williamsburg. I didn't feel like dressing up. I wore a pale blue sundress and tied my hair up lazily. I told myself I was just going to make an appearance, toast the couple, and head home to eat Thai food in bed. Then I saw him. He was leaning against the balcony railing, talking to Nicole's fiancé, Drew. Dark jeans, rolled sleeves, a beer bottle dangling loosely from one hand. Not flashy. Not loud. But magnetic in that subtle way, like he didn't need the room to see him because he already knew exactly who he was. Our eyes met for a second, and that was it. It wasn't a movie moment. No swelling music or slow motion. Just a tiny flicker, something I hadn't felt in a long time. I looked away, pretending to be distracted by the snack table. Later, Nicole came over and whispered, "That's Tyler. Drew's cousin from out west. Visiting for the week." Cool. Cousin. Out of town. Temporary. Perfect. Of course we ended up talking. I don't even remember how it started. Some throwaway comment about the rooftop view, or maybe the weird hummus that tasted like peanut butter. But within 5 minutes I found myself laughing, really laughing, at something he said. Not polite social laughter. The kind that bubbles up from your chest before you can stop it. Tyler was different. He asked real questions. Not what do you do, or how's wedding planning, but things like, when's the last time you did something reckless? Do you ever feel like you're living someone else's life? And I answered, honestly, without thinking. He didn't know I was engaged until Nicole walked up and said, isn't it wild she's getting married in like 3 weeks? He paused. Just a second. But I noticed it. That's soon, he said, still smiling, but there was something new in his eyes. Not judgment, not curiosity, just recognition. Like he saw straight through me. I stepped away soon after. Told myself I needed air. Or space. Or maybe just to not do something stupid. I stood alone for a while near the elevator, sipping watered-down sangria, trying to shake off whatever just happened. He didn't come after me. Thought I was relieved. But the truth is I waited. I waited for him to show up in that doorway. I waited to feel seen again. I waited for a message I didn't give him permission to send. And when it came 2 days later, it was like opening a window in a room I didn't know had gone stale. Hey, didn't get to say goodbye. You always laugh like that. I stared at my phone for a long time. Then I smiled. And wrote back. Only when someone surprises me. I hit send. And in that moment, I knew I had just crossed a line. It started with a single message. And like most dangerous things, it felt harmless at first. Tyler and I began texting later that same night. I told myself it was just a casual conversation, a fleeting connection I could tuck into the back of my mind like an old photograph. But the truth was I was checking my phone every few minutes, waiting for that screen to light up with his name. And it always did. The next morning I woke up to, what's your favorite time of day? I replied without hesitation. Right before it gets dark. That one quiet hour when it's not day or night yet. Everything feels suspended. He wrote back. That's when people say things they don't mean, or mean more than they say. It hit me in the stomach, not because it was bold but because it was true. That hour between day and night was starting to feel like where I lived emotionally, between commitment and curiosity, between Ethan and him. We talked every day after that. Never flirtatious, not overtly. But there was something intimate in how deeply he listened. He'd ask me questions no one else had ever thought to ask. Do you feel chosen or just convenient? When did you last shock yourself? One evening he sent me a photo of a used bookstore he'd found near his Airbnb. Thought of you, he said. I didn't remember telling him I loved bookstores, but I must have in some passing sentence. Ethan and I passed bookstores all the time, he never once stopped. Some nights I'd wake up at 3 a.m., check my phone and find a message already waiting. You ever feel like you're watching your life from the outside? Yes. God, yes. The guilt crept in slowly. I'd be sitting across from Ethan, choosing tablecloth swatches, tasting lemon cake samples, nodding at seating chart plans, and thinking of Tyler's voice in my head. The messages had turned into late-night phone calls. Then voice notes. Then the occasional video call that lasted too long and ended with silence neither of us wanted to break. And yet, we never acknowledged what was happening. That made it easier to lie to myself. We weren't doing anything. But there were moments I couldn't ignore. Like when Tyler asked, do you love him? I answered too quickly. Of course I do. He was quiet for a moment. Then, that's not what I asked. My breath caught. Because he was right. And in that silence the weight of my own dishonesty started pressing down harder. One day I was helping Ethan try on his tux at a fitting in Midtown. He looked great, clean lines, classic black and white, his smile big and boyish in the mirror. He looked happy. I excused myself to the bathroom, locked the door, pulled out my phone. There was a message from Tyler. I leave in 4 days. Can I see you before I go? I stared at it for a long time. My heart felt like it was caught in someone else's chest. Someone bolder, braver, or just more foolish than I ever allowed myself to be. I told myself I was just going to talk to him. To say goodbye. To end whatever this almost was before it turned into something it couldn't be. But deep down I already knew. That choice was made the moment I typed. Yes. Just for a little while. And I hit send. I wore a white blouse. I remember that detail so clearly it makes me sick now. The irony of it. White like the dress hanging in my closet, like innocence, like promises. I told Ethan I was grabbing dinner with Nicole. He didn't ask questions. He never did. That was part of the problem. Tyler sent me the address of a quiet little jazz bar in the Lower East Side. Dim lights, exposed brick, and music that melted into the background like it belonged to your memories. The kind of place where no one notices you unless you want them to. Perfect. I was already there when he walked in. My heart stopped just for a second, like it forgot what it was supposed to do. He looked like he hadn't slept much, like something heavy was riding his shoulders. Maybe the same thing that sat in my chest every night now. He sat down across from me without a word. For a full minute we just looked at each other. No greeting. No apology. Then he said, "I didn't think you'd come." I took a sip of my drink, hands trembling slightly. Neither did I. The conversation started like it always did. Light, casual, surface level. Music, travel, family, books. Safe things. But it didn't stay safe for long. After the second round of drinks, something shifted. "You look tired," he said. "I haven't been sleeping much." "Because of the wedding?" I hesitated. Then said, "Because of you." He didn't smile. He didn't gloat. He just stared at me with those eyes that felt like mirrors, showing me parts of myself I had tried to hide even from Ethan. He leaned in, voice low. "You don't have to say anything. I just needed to see you." And then, silence. The kind that stretches out between two people when there's too much truth in the room. I should have left. Right then. Paid the bill, smiled politely, gone home to Ethan and Charlie, and picked up the guest favors where I left off. But instead I followed Tyler out the door. We walked without speaking, our shoulders almost brushing, the city buzzing softly around us. He stopped in front of a brownstone Airbnb a few blocks away. Turned to me and waited. He didn't ask. He didn't need to. I walked inside. Up the stairs, past the creaky hallway, into a room that smelled faintly of cedar and soap. And there, in the hush of that unfamiliar place, something happened that I can't describe in detail, but I will say this. It wasn't about sex. It was about surrender. About being fully seen. Fully wanted. Fully real. No timelines. No dresses. No rings. Just me. Afterward we lay there in silence, not awkward, not ashamed. Just still. I don't know how long we stayed like that. Maybe hours. Maybe years. Eventually I said the thing I hadn't allowed myself to think. "I don't want to hurt him." Tyler didn't move. Then he said, "But you already have." I felt tears sting behind my eyes, but I blinked them away. I didn't deserve the release of crying. Not when I was the one who crossed the line. He kissed me once more, softly, like it was both a goodbye and a question. I didn't answer. I left before sunrise. The city was quiet. Still asleep. I walked home with my engagement ring hidden in my pocket and guilt clinging to my skin like the humidity of an early New York morning. When I got back, Ethan was still asleep. The dog wagged his tail quietly from his spot on the couch. I sat at the edge of the bed and stared at him. He looked peaceful. Steady. And I hated how much I wanted to crawl back into that safety. And hated more that part of me didn't. Because now I wasn't sure who I was anymore. And even worse, I didn't know who I wanted to be. The morning of my wedding felt too quiet. No birds. No traffic. No nerves. Just stillness. Like the city was holding its breath along with me. I sat in the hotel bridal suite, half-dressed, staring at my reflection. The makeup artist fluttered around me like a moth with a mission, but her voice was distant. I heard the words, dewy, natural glow, timeless, but they didn't register. All I could think was, how did I get here? Nicole was buzzing with excitement, running through checklists and fluffing my dress like she was staging a bridal magazine shoot. At one point she caught my eyes in the mirror and froze. "You okay?" she asked. I nodded. Light. Smiled. But inside, everything was unraveling. I felt like I was watching a version of myself go through the motions. Someone who had made all the right choices, done everything expected of her, and now was just moments away from signing her name to a life she wasn't sure was hers. Ethan sent a note to my room. "Can't wait to see you walk down that aisle. You're my forever." I stared at the handwriting. Familiar. Steady. Safe. I wanted to feel warmth. I wanted my heart to skip in that movie scene kind of way. But instead, I felt the weight of what I hadn't told him pressing into my chest like a second skin. Tyler hadn't contacted me again. No texts. No calls. No grand gestures to stop the wedding. Just silence, and somehow that made it harder. Because now the choice was fully mine. No pressure. No push. Just one question echoing in my mind. Can I go through with this? I stood at the back of the ceremony space, hidden behind heavy white curtains. The music had started. The bridesmaids were already walking down. The air smelled like roses and pine and everything fake perfect. My dad stood beside me, arm looped with mine. You ready, kiddo? I couldn't speak. Just nodded again. Always nodding. The doors opened. And there was Ethan standing at the altar, beaming. Guests turned their heads. Cameras flashed. The violinist hit that familiar swell. I took one step forward. And stopped. It wasn't a dramatic gasp moment. No one fainted. I didn't run. I just stood there. Completely still. The world blurred around me. I couldn't hear the music anymore. I couldn't see the guests. Just Ethan. Waiting. Smiling. Believing in a version of me I wasn't sure existed anymore. My father leaned in. Emma. I swallowed hard. My mouth was dry. I just need a minute, I whispered. I turned around, not fast, not dramatic, just slow. Measured. And walked out the way I came in. I ended up sitting on a stone bench behind the venue, still in my wedding dress, veil twisted in my lap like a crumpled napkin. No one followed me. Or maybe they didn't know where I went. I don't know how long I sat there. Eventually Nicole came out. Quiet. Calm. She didn't scold me. She didn't say anything actually. Just handed me a bottle of water and sat beside me. After a while she asked, "Do you love Ethan?" I exhaled slowly. Yes. But I don't know if it's the kind of love you promise forever with. Then she asked, "Do you love Tyler?" And I couldn't answer. Because what I felt with Tyler wasn't stable or safe. It was wild, electric, consuming, but was it love? Or was it just escape? I buried my face in my hands. I don't know who I am right now, I said, voice breaking. I thought I did. But I don't. Nicole gently touched my shoulder. Then don't decide today. No one gets to demand certainty from you. Not today. The dress suddenly felt heavy on my body. Like it belonged to someone else. Maybe it did. Later that night. The guests were gone. Ethan never called. I knew I owed him a conversation, 1,000 apologies, an explanation I didn't even know how to give. But not that night. I walked the city streets in flats and a hoodie, hair undone, face raw from crying. I didn't go to Tyler. I didn't go to Ethan. I walked. People passed me, talking, laughing, living their lives. And for the first time in years I wasn't trying to perform mine. I don't know who I'll end up with. Maybe Ethan deserves someone who never looked back. Maybe Tyler was just a moment, not a future. Maybe I need to be alone until I trust myself again. But tonight all I know is this. Sometimes the bravest thing a woman can do is not choose. Not yet. The apartment was quiet again. Not the suffocating kind of silence, the peaceful kind. The kind where the hum of the fridge and the distant street noise feel like company, not absence. It had been exactly 63 days since I left Ethan at the altar. Since then I moved into a small sublet in Queens. Nothing fancy. Hardwood floors, crooked light switches, a draft near the windows. But it was mine. Just mine. The first few weeks were a blur of returned gifts, unanswered texts, and awkward phone calls with relatives who didn't understand. I let Ethan go without a fight. He didn't yell. He didn't beg. He just said, "I hope someday you find what you're looking for." And that was the end of us. Tyler messaged me 3 days after the wedding. Just 3 words. "Are you okay?" I stared at it for hours. Then typed, "I will be." And didn't send it. I didn't know what he wanted. Or what I wanted from him. So I let it be. I focused on rebuilding something I hadn't realized I'd lost long before either of them. Myself. I went back to freelance work. Started writing again. Nicole dragged me to a few yoga classes. I spent quiet nights reading novels I used to love. And slowly I stopped reaching for my phone every 5 minutes. Stopped scanning crowds hoping to see Tyler's face. Stopped dreaming about what could have been. Until one Sunday morning as I stepped into a coffee shop 2 blocks from my apartment. There he was. Tyler. He looked older somehow. Not tired, just clearer. We locked eyes. No tension. No music. No movie moment. Just a long, honest pause between 2 people who had shared something real in a very wrong time. He smiled first. "Hey," he said. Hey, I answered. We talked for almost an hour. Just talked. No flirting, no apologies. He told me he had stayed in the city a bit longer, picked up some freelance photography gigs, was trying to reset things in his own life. I told him I was writing again. That I lived alone. That I was trying to figure out who I was without someone else's story wrapped around mine. When we finished our coffee, he asked, "Can I walk you home?" I looked at him for a long moment. Then said, "No." His eyebrows lifted. I smiled gently. "But you can walk with me," I said. "If you want." And he did. We didn't hold hands. We didn't talk about the past. We just walked. Two people who had broken things, hearts, rules, expectations, and were now quietly learning to build something new. Maybe together. Maybe not. But for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I owed anyone an answer. Sometimes the best kind of love is the one you walk into slowly. Without noise. Without pressure. Just step by step.